Alright guys, so today we are going to be multiplying integers. This is pretty easy. Hopefully you get the hang of it quickly. So this is the main point of this whole thing. If we are multiplying a positive number times another positive number, we get a positive number. So positive times a positive equals a positive number. Next, if we have a negative number times a negative number, we get a positive number. So negative times negative equals positive. Let's look at these two real quick. These two. Notice how if the two numbers are the same sign, then it's always a positive number. In this case, it's a negative times a negative. These are the two same similar signs. It's always a positive. Always positive. Now, if we are multiplying two numbers with different signs, if we're multiplying a negative times a positive, the answer is always negative. So a negative times a positive always equal to a negative. So if the two are different, then it'll be negative. If the two are similar, it'll be positive. So let's try a couple. If we have negative 5 times negative 7, remember, negative, negative, the answer is going to be positive. So 5 times 7 is 35. And let's look over to the one on the right. We have 3 times 4. This is just like we're used to saying. Both are positive, so the answer is going to be positive. 3 times 4 is equal to 12. So now I want you to try it. Pause the video and unpause the video when you are finished. So let's look at the first one. If we have 2 times 5, like we're used to, 2 times 5, both positive, the answer is going to be positive, so 2 times 5 is 10, a positive 10. And the second one, if we have a negative 2 times a negative 5, both are positive, or both are negative. Thus, the answer is going to be positive, since both of them are the same. So this answer, again, just like the one to the left, is going to be a positive 10. Doesn't even matter if we have positive 2 times positive 5 over here on the left, or a negative 2 times a negative 5. Both answers are going to be a positive 10. Now let's try with different signs. We have a positive 2 and a negative 8. If we multiply a positive times a negative, the answer is going to be negative. So 2 times 8 is 16. So 16 is the final answer. Now let's look at the next one. We have a negative 4 times a positive 11. Negative times a positive is always going to be a negative. Thus, 4 times 11 is 44. So our answer is negative 44. So what I want you to do now is to try this one and pause the video and then unpause the video when you're ready to see what I've done. Alright, so if we have a negative 5 times a positive 10, remember, negative times a positive is always going to be negative. And then so all we have is 5 times 10. That answer is 50. So our answer that we're going to have is a negative 50. So now it's getting a little bit trickier. Now we have 3 numbers. So remember, with order of operations, just take it one step at a time. So let's look at the first two. If we have negative 4 and 3, so a negative times a positive is always going to be a negative. So negative 4 times 3 is 12. Then bring everything else down. So if we have a negative times a negative, for negative 12 times negative 2, negative times a negative is a positive, so 12 times 2 is 24, and our final answer is 24. So now what I want you to do is to pause the video, try this one yourself, and then unpause the video when you're ready to see what I have done. Alright, so at first, remember, we want to take the first two numbers and solve those first. So, just like an order of operations. So, if we have positive 5 times a negative 2, a positive times a negative is a negative, so 5 times 2 is 10, so our answer is negative 10. So bring down the rest and make that a negative 8. So if we have a negative 10 times a negative 8, negative times a negative is a positive, so 10 times 8 is 80. Thus our final answer is a positive 80. So now we're going to be multiplying some numbers, but we're also going to be throwing in some variables. This is pretty simple. Just follow along and see what we can do. So, remember, if we are multiplying this negative 3 times 6y, what we would do, we'd think of this as multiplying the negative 3 times 6 first. So negative 3 times a positive 6 is a negative 18. But we also have to carry along this y with us. So our answer is going to be negative 18 times y, or negative 18y. That is going to be our final answer. Now let's look over to the next one. If we have a negative 2x times 4y, we would multiply our numbers. So negative 2 times a positive 4, a negative times a positive is always going to be a negative, so negative 2 times 4 is 8. And we also, remember, we always have to bring over the x and the y as well. So our answer is going to be negative 8 times x times y. This is read as negative 8xy. So now what I want you to do is to pause the video, try this one yourself. The second one might be a little bit tricky, but hopefully you can get the hang of the first one. Okay, so let's look at the first one. Remember, we have a negative 2 times 9m. So remember, we have to multiply negative 2 times a positive 9. So negative times a positive is always a negative. So 2 times 9 is 18. So this answer is 18m, because we have to bring this m along with us. So this next one, remember, one thing that we can do is to just focus on the first one first. Let's focus on the first two first. So if we have 2x times 3y, so if we have 2x times 3y, what is a positive 2 times a positive 3? That's a positive 6, and we have to bring along the x and the y as well. So that would be 6xy. That's how we came with that. But then we also have to bring down everything else. So bring down that negative 4z. Now we have a positive 6xy times a negative 4z. So let's look at the numbers first. We have a positive 6 and a negative 4. A positive times a negative is always equal to a negative. So remember, we must bring along the x and the y and even the z. So positive 6 times negative 4 is equal to negative 24. Bring along the x, the y, and the z. So this answer, so the problem, 2x times 3y times negative 4z The answer is negative 24 x, y, z.